Thunder! 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 ThunderCats! Ho!
Do you remember the first time you laid eyes on the Sword of Omens amidst the thunderous roar of ThunderCats' Ho? I was completely spellbound by those fierce cat-human hybrids. Yet I couldn't help but shudder as the spectre of Mumm-Ra stepped out from the shadows of his pyramid. But behind those frames of animation lie secrets that are hard to believe. Did you know that the imposing Lion-O is actually just a 12-year-old child? Or that the character's armour was the result of a quirky effort to educate the youth of the time? And if I told you that this American masterpiece was actually crafted by Japanese hands, or that Cheetara was once red-flagged for her sultry physique? You'll begin to understand ThunderCats is an animated series for adults. Today, let's leave the dusty Third Earth behind to uncover 20 mind-blowing secrets spanning nearly 40 years of the Thunderian warriors. 20. The characters are undressed. I can still picture the feeling of holding my breath while watching the opening episode. It was a tragic, epic beginning, the home planet Thunderer exploding, and the group of refugees standing silent on their spacecraft, their eyes filled with the pain of loss as they watch their home turn into cosmic dust. However, there's a surprising fact. In those first scenes, all the ThunderCats were wearing no clothes. That's right, you heard me. The filmmakers didn't seem bothered by this at all. And if you're trying to make the excuse that they were in such a hurry to evacuate that they forgot to dress, you're mistaken. This movie is strictly for adults. According to the production crew, the people of Thundera simply had no concept of clothing. It sounds ridiculous, but before its destruction, Thundera was essentially a giant galactic, clothing-free civilization. Wearing clothes was a concept that didn't exist in their minds until they set foot on Third Earth. Luckily for the censors of that era, the cats quickly adapted to their new status. They soon donned uniforms and equipped themselves with weapons. And of course, the toy companies breathed a massive sigh of relief to how the show psychologically manipulated adults. I still vividly remember those mornings when my parents let me watch ThunderCats. At the time, I was simply immersed in Lion-O's sword swings, but I had no idea the filmmakers were executing a psychological maneuver. In the 80s, parents viewed cartoons with a skeptical eye. However, ThunderCats had a clever strategy market the show to the parents, not the kids. Advertisements at the time were filled with promises. They used slogans that appealed to the parental psyche. ThunderCats has all the action your child craves, but it also possesses what you desire. Lessons in honesty, justice, and respect. The campaign even played the role of a partner, acknowledging that parenting is a tough battle and ThunderCats was a helpful ally. The result was a hilarious synergy. Parents were happy because they thought they'd found a TV teacher, while the kids were ecstatic because they could watch the show without being nagged. 18. Uncovering the truth behind Lion-O's bizarre behaviour. Lion-O is the perfect king, rippling muscles, fiery hair, and the powerful Sword of Omens. Whenever he shouts the battle cry, no one doubts this leader. But have you ever felt that Lion-O's decisions were sometimes inexplicably strange? That's because the truth lies here. The great hero is actually a 12-year-old child trapped in a giant's body. When the ship left, Thundera Lion-O was just a boy. But a technical glitch in his suspension capsule caused his body to age into an adult overnight. If you look back at the early episodes, you'll see a clumsy Lion-O impatient, acting on impulse, and frequently letting curiosity override his reason. Most of the trouble the group encountered stemmed from their lord jumping to immature conclusions. This was a subtle, intentional move by the creators. They built a character that represents puberty. Lion-O isn't just a superhero. He is a mirror reflecting our own journey of growing up. Did you catch these moments? Let me know in the comments below. 17. The heated controversies surrounding Cheetara. If Lion-O is the symbol of strength, then Cheetara is the embodiment of speed. Whenever you see those streaks of light on the screen, that's her starting the race. You'll see her swinging her magical staff to defend justice with the grace of a master dancer. Cheetara's speed was precisely clocked at 120 miles per hour, about 193 kilometers per hour. To put that in perspective, it takes her only 30 seconds to finish a mile. Experts believe that's still not her ultimate limit, as she rarely has to go all out. However, many parents raised an eyebrow when they saw Cheetara in her skin-tight bodysuit. Censors at the time debated whether her appearance was a bit too hot. In early sketches, her design was much bolder, forcing artists to adjust it multiple times to pass the hurdle of American broadcasting. It was this very warrior who sparked a cult following at San Diego Comic-Con. Meko Toys released an exclusive 14-inch version complete with her bow staff and a snarf figure. These models sold out instantly. To this day, owning a Meko Toys Cheetara remains a dream for many collectors. 16. Superheroes with a mythological soul. When we look at Lion-O or Panthro, we see them as cat people from the future, a pure product of Western imagination. But why cats? And why is their power always linked to thunder? To explain this, you have to look back at Japanese folklore from 1886. In ancient translations of Japanese culture, descriptions were found of a half-man, half-beast creature known as the Thunder Sprite, the ThunderCat. But in the original tongue, there is a much more powerful name, Raiju Thunder Beast. According to legend, the Raiju is a beast born from pure lightning. They often take the form of wolves, weasels, and most notably, cats. If you look closely at Panthro, you will see a striking resemblance to ancient descriptions of the Raiju. While the producers never officially admitted to borrowing this, the appearance of thunder entities in feline form across both cultures is a fascinating coincidence. 15. Mumm-Ra and the Terror of the Mirror. Mumm-Ra is one of the most terrifying villains in animation history, an ancient mummy with infinite power granted by the ancient spirits of evil. Yet do you remember how every time Lion-O raised his claw shield, Mumm-Ra would flee in a panic at the sight of his own reflection? Back then, we thought it was a moral lesson about evil fearing itself. But the truth behind this weakness is much more practical. The writers admitted that making Mumm-Ra afraid of mirrors was actually a way to cut down on screen time. Whenever an episode was running out of time and Lion-O hadn't won yet, they simply had Mumm-Ra look into a mirror so he would retreat on his own. This allowed the episode to end quickly without draining the budget. As it turns out, the great villain's biggest fear was actually the production budget for the mysterious disappearance of the feline race. On Third Earth, there is only a small group of ThunderCats with no feline civilian population to be found. Have you ever noticed that we used to believe they were the sole survivors? However, a darker truth was revealed in old drafts. Originally, there was a plotline about many other Thunderians escaping, only to be enslaved or transformed into monstrous creatures by Mumm-Ra. However, the producers wanted children to focus exclusively on the 5 or 6 main faces. Maintaining an entire race would have required creating dozens of supporting characters, which meant a higher financial risk if children became distracted from the main toy line. The total destruction of Thundera was in many ways a marketing decision to simplify the product catalogue. 13. The Sword of Omens and the truth about sight beyond sight. Give me sight beyond sight. Lion-O's classic cry as he looks through the hilt of the sword to see the future or events far away. We once considered this the pinnacle of the show's magical lore. But here's the surprise: this sight beyond sight ability was created to reuse stock footage. Whenever Lion-O looked into the sword instead of drawing new scenes, the animators could just insert clips from previous episodes or existing sequences. This was a cost-saving trick for hand-drawn animation, which was extremely expensive in the 80s. The Sword of Truth was actually a tool for the filmmakers to cut corners as quickly as possible. 12. Snarf, the character. hated most by the crew. Snarf was the loyal companion and the comic relief of the group. Most kids found Snarf cute, but did you know that almost everyone working on the show hated him? The writers and animators felt Snarf was too annoying and ruined the serious tone of the series. Even the voice actor for Snarf faced immense pressure to produce that signature high-pitched whine. The only reason Snarf existed and appeared so frequently was because marketers believed the character would sell more plushies and toys to younger children. Snarf wasn't a family member. Snarf was a mandatory commodity. 11. The show hired a psychologist to vet every script. In my memory, ThunderCats had a strange sense of solemnity. I remember how proud I was to tell my friends that this was a specialist-approved program. Even my parents watched it with me with a contemplative attitude, as if they were participating in a life skills training course. You heard that right, the show actually hired a psychologist to supervise the scripts. At a time when the concept of child psychology was still fresh, the producers of ThunderCats placed Dr. Robert Kuis in the position of censor. Every line of dialogue or any potentially risky plot point had to be removed. The producers even asked him to write short reports for each episode to be sent to television stations. They wanted the world to know, we aren't just making a movie, we are protecting the souls of your children. Was all that process for the children or just a PR stunt? The filmmakers were brilliant in realizing that to sell toys they had to sell trust to the people holding the wallets. 10. ThunderCats Ho, when cinematic dreams turned into cassette tapes. The moment Lion-O roared "Thunder, Thunder, ThunderCats," Ho was always tied to epic battles. ThunderCats was an epic, and I truly believed that one day it would have a worthy feature film. Do you remember the movie ThunderCats Ho? Probably not many people do. In reality, ThunderCats Ho was meant to be a cinematic blockbuster rather than a home video release. The reason? Not because the script was bad, but because the disastrous failures of other siblings like My Little Pony or GoBots made investors hesitate. And so, a great prequel story was chopped up into 5 television episodes and even tacked on to the beginning of Season 2 without any explanation. Davini, a behind-the-scenes secret that was literally terrifying. We used to believe that to create such a humanistic world, the team behind the scenes must have been full of inspired harmony. The truth, however, was quite the opposite. Behind those frames was a suffocating work environment orchestrated by Jules Bass. As the head of production at Rankin/Bass in New York, Jules Bass wasn't the type of boss to invite you for coffee. According to executive producer Peter Lawrence, Bass was highly disciplined, even extreme. Imagine you're a writer who just finished dozens of script pages. Jules Bass would glance over them, and if they didn't suit his fancy, without a word of explanation, he'd toss the entire stack straight into the trash. His perfectionism put immense pressure on the whole crew. Bass was so strict he didn't fully trust anyone. He even wrote many scripts himself under the pseudonym Julian P. Gardner to ensure everything went exactly his way. 8. Friction with Japanese animators. ThunderCats possessed a look that was entirely distinct from contemporaries like He-Man or G.I. Joe. It featured elegant lines and fluid movements that were both American strong and Asian refined. The secret: the entire visual production was handled by Pacific Animation, a studio in Japan. But as you know, the Japanese are famous for their politeness. In their work culture, saying no directly is a major taboo. This created a classic misunderstanding for the American writers whenever the US side asked if an idea was feasible. The Japanese artist would nod and say, "Yes, hi." However, in reality, that nod didn't mean they agreed. It just meant, "I hear you." The result: the American writers would wait only to receive a drawing that was completely different from what they asked for. That was the Japanese artist's way of politely rejecting requests they deemed inappropriate. Furthermore, these artists had a specific phobia, a fear of crowds. They dreaded scenes with too many characters because maintaining that level of detail was incredibly difficult. Whenever a script called for an epic battle, the artists would find ways to draw it as minimally as possible. 7. When homework was about. ThunderCats. Imagine you're a kid in the 80s. The teacher walks into class and announces, "Your homework tonight is ThunderCats." That feeling was like winning the lottery. I still remember the excitement when watching cartoons became a literal assignment. But did you know behind this dream was a brilliant marketing campaign? To prepare for the launch, Telepictures released 40,000 educational kits sent directly to elementary schools. They transformed ThunderCats from an entertainment show into part of the curriculum. Every episode was embedded with moral lessons. Students even received certificates after completing these special assignments. And what happened next? Once a child had that certificate in hand, parents would take them out to buy a Lion-O or Panthro figure as a reward. 6. When a superhero script is written by sound engineers. Do you remember the philosophical dialogue in ThunderCats? Listen to how Jugger teaches Lion-O about vision. The Sword of Omens can give you sight beyond sight, but it is your heart that must interpret what you see. I used to believe a massive team of elite writers stood behind that world. In reality, the filmmakers struggled desperately to find anyone to write the scripts. In the mid-80s, while most animation was based on the West Coast, Los Angeles ThunderCats chose the East Coast. This mistake pushed producer Peter Lawrence into a tragicomic situation. Even though the storyboards were finished, he couldn't find a single writer. In desperation, the producer had an idea. They pulled in whoever was in the studio to act as a writer. Everyone from office staff to sound engineers suddenly found themselves writing for Thunderer. Such a situation should have been a disaster. But strangely enough, that very chaos created a unique flair that made the scripts feel vibrant and inimitable. 5. The reason behind new character debuts. Every time a new character appeared on ThunderCats, my friends and I would go wild. We were obsessed with the weapons and the rugged vehicles, believing everything was born to serve the battle for justice on Third Earth. But the truth was much more practical characters appeared at the request of the toy company. ThunderCats operated on a very blunt financial structure. In meetings, executives from the company Leisure Concepts sat right next to the writers. Their task was simple: observe the money-making potential of every character. Writers often received prototype toys on their desks with the instruction, "Find a way to put this in the next episode." The result? Those toys became treasures. Some rare models now fetch prices up to $25,000. The toy moguls sold us a half-century-long financial fever disguised as lessons in integrity. 4. When ThunderCats was almost banned. Despite the show's success, child advocacy groups at the time viewed ThunderCats as a dangerous program. The group Action for Children's Television accused it of being a 30-minute toy commercial. They argued the episodes were just excuses to display products turning children's innocent souls into targets for profit. The pressure was so great that the show faced a real threat of being banned. But then a spectacular turnaround occurred. The Federal Communications Commission (FCC) ruled that the show could stay on the air because they didn't advertise the actual toys during the commercial breaks within the show. A legal loophole saved the series by a hair. 3. The failure of the 2011 remake. Did you ever watch the 2011 ThunderCats remake? It moved away from the 80s art style toward a world of sharp character designs and dark storylines. But despite a massive start with over 2.4 million viewers on Cartoon Network, the show was considered a failure. The reason? While the filmmakers built a dark, sophisticated world, they forgot their most vital audience: children aged 6 to 12. The deep, heavy content was too much for kids, causing viewership to drop with every episode. Consequently, On store shelves, the new versions of the figures failed to spark the same frenzy as their predecessors. A real shame too. Lion-O or Lionel. The name Lion-O rings out with authority tied to the image of the fierce, fire-haired leader. We are so used to it that we assume it was born from mythology. But you might not know that in the original sketches, the Lord of the ThunderCats was named Lionel. Head writer Leonard Starr confirmed this was the character's original name. However, as soon as Lionel appeared on paper, producers feared a direct legal collision with Lionel Trains, the famous toy train brand of the time. The fear of a trademark lawsuit forced the filmmakers to hastily change the name to Lion-O. 1. The legendary theme song and unexpected recycling. The ThunderCats theme is one of the greatest of all time with its powerful brass and driving melody. It makes you want to jump into battle the moment you hear it. Bernard Hoffer. The composer used a technique called structural recycling from classical pieces and commercial jingles he had created previously. Some of the transitions in the score were directly inspired by music he wrote for cereal and household appliance commercials. The filmmakers took the catchiest hooks already proven to be addictive to consumers and applied them to the cartoon. We have journeyed through the 20 strangest hidden corners of Third Earth, but the world of classic cinema and animation still holds many pyramids of secrets waiting to be excavated. Leave a comment if you want me to feature any specific title or share your feelings about the first time you heard the raw ThunderCats. Whoo! Besides these names, are you a die-hard fan of any other cartoons? Don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I'll help you unlock the most amazing secrets of our childhood.